This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Parshas Chayei, Friday afternoon. It's a short day. We have a lot to do, little time. In the past, we sometimes say, keep your socks on, keep your shoes on. Today, we're going to give a little warning. Try to stay right side up. And you'll see what I mean. There is a common expression, and many people probably think it's somewhere in Shas. Bara kara davua. A son are the legs of the father. Actually, if I were to ask, where does it say that? The person would say, yeah, in Shas. Or somewhere.
It's not Aramaic.
Actually, it doesn't say it anywhere.
It says it right here.
It does not say it anywhere. Bara kara davua. Where does that come from? Shagar b'fi hakol. That's what everybody says. But actually, if you look in the Gemara in Eruvin, on Daf Einam and Beis number 2, it says Yoireish kara davuha. The inheritor are the legs of the father. But there is such an expression, bara kara davuha, a child, a son, are the legs of the father. And what we like to try to explain is, of all the parts of the body, why is the son considered the legs of the father?
Why not the head?
Why not the head? Why not the hands? Why not the heart? Why not the mind? The legs of the father. Okay. Very interesting. I'm going to ask you a kasha now. You're going to think to yourself, hey, how come I never thought of that question? How old was Yitzchak at the Akedah?
37.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Quick to say 16. No, this is
37. Parsha's 37. How old was he when he married Rivka? 40. He waited 10 years till... Right? She was Rola Ryan. And then, what? And then 10 years until she was an acclaimed Akara. So how old was Yitzchak when Yaakov and Esau was born? 60. How old was Abraham when Yitzchak was born?
100. Oh.
How old was Yitzchak
When he was born?
when he celebrated his son's bar mitzvah? 73. On that day, Vayigdalu Hanarim, they went off the derech, right? Esau went off the derech. And what happened on that day when Yaakov was cooking those beans? Abraham died. How old were Esau and Yaakov?
13.
Some say 15, but some say 13. According to those who say 13, how old was Yitzchak at the time? 73. How old was Abraham? 173. Right? Because we know Abraham was 100 when Yitzchak was born. Yitzchak was 60 when Yaakov and Esau were born. So that means on the day of the bar mitzvah of Yaakov and Esau, Abraham was 173, and the Torah tells us that Abraham died on that day. What? But I thought he was 175. But according to our cheshbon we just made is he was only 173.
We have a Shiur on that once before.
No, not with me. But again, here's the question. The question is, the Torah says that Abraham was 175 when he died, but that doesn't work out. He was 100 when Yitzchak was born. Yitzchak was 60 when Yaakov and Esau were born. That would make Yitzchak 73 when they became bar mitzvah, which was presumably, according to many opinions, the day that Avram Avinu died. But if Avram Avinu was 175 when he died, but according to our calculations, he was only 173, what happened to the missing 2 years? Okay. Let's turn for a moment to the end of last week's Parsha, at the end of the Akedah. Okay? And the question I'm going to ask you is a rhetorical one, because if you know the answer, so don't shout it out. Don't shout it out. What? 15. Going to 15. That works out, yeah. Correct. At the end of the Akedah, last week's Parsha, Parak Chaf Beis, Pasuk Yates, Vayashav Abraham el Ne'arav. Abraham returned to his Na'arim. Who are his Na'arim? Who? Ishmael and Eliezer. I have a question for you. Where's Yitzchak?
He didn't come. He went back. He went someplace else.
Remember the instructions before I asked the question? Don't shout out the answer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Where is Yitzchak? Where is Yitzchak? The Torah says, Vayashav Abraham el Na'arav. Abraham returned to his Na'arav. Where is Yitzchak? So some Rishonim say that he hid Yitzchak because of Ayin Hara. Okay. Now, this week's Parsha. V'atama Sarah. Sarah died. B'kiryas Arba, he Chevron, Be'ez Canaan. V'yavai Avraham. Avraham came listed by Sarah of Kaisa.
Where is Yitzchak?
Where's Yitzchak? Where did Yitzchak go? Finally, it should say, Parshas Taldos, number 6. And Yaakov Avinu, Yitzchak enters after Yaakov already taken the brachos. And what does the pasuk say? Vayarach esreach begadav. Take a look in Perek. This is in Parshas
Gan Eden.
Taldos.
You wrote Chayei, Sarah. You made a mistake.
Parshas.
You wrote on the sheet Chayei, Sarah.
I mentioned that already. Yeah. Perek pasuk Chav Zayin. Yeah. Pasuk Chav Zayin. The pasuk says Vayija, Vayigash, Vayishak loy. Vayarach esreach begadav vayivarchehu vayomer re'eh reach b'ni kareach sada asher bercha Hashem. See, the scent of my son is like the scent of a field that God blessed. Rashi said, what? Esav smelled so good? Yaakov was wearing the shetef. Yaakov was wearing the garments of the goat, right? Of goat skin. Rashi says nothing smells worse than goat skin. Besides gasoline, nothing smells worse than goat skin. The scent of Gan Eden entered with Yaakov, and Yitzchak commented, wow, you smell like Gan Eden. And the question is, how would Yitzchak know what Gan Eden smells like?
He went there.
How would Yitzchak know what?
He went there.
Baruch Hashem, we're not able to follow directions, but there's a well-known medrash that the medrash tells us that actually at the end of the Parsha, it says that when Rivka was coming back to Eretz Yisrael and she sees Yitzchak, the pasuk says Yitzchak was coming mi be'er lachai roi. Right? Take a look in the end of Chayei Sarah. This is very important that you see this inside. The pasuk says, Perak Chavdale pasuk samach beis v'Yitzchak ba mi boy be'er lachai roi. Yitzchak was returning from be'er lachai roi. V'hu yoshev be'eretz hanegev. He was living in the south. Says Megala Amukos. Megala Amukos writes, B'nei nechlekul Chazal. There's a machlekes in Chazal. V'Yitzchak ba mehechon hu ba. Where is he coming from? Chacham echad. Aimer mi beis midrash shel Shem Ever. One Chacham said he was coming from the beis midrash. V'Chacham echad. Aimer shaba mi Gan Eden. And there's another opinion that Yitzchak was coming from Gan Eden. Now you ask, what was he doing in Gan Eden? V'nei krom asnisa mesayim lahadin. Da'amar mi Gan Eden ba Yitzchak. There is a pasuk and Tanaitic source that to this opinion that Yitzchak came from Gan Eden. Shahayasham Gimel Shanim. He was there 3 year. Miyom Sheneker Agabe Yamizbech, from the day that he was tied to the Mizbech, Ad Yom Shenizdav Galoi Basuga, until the day of his Shidduchin. Kra. What's the raya from the pasuk? Masha'amar vayavai Avraham list by the Sarvel of Kaisa. The pasuk says Avraham came to eulogize Sarah. Kasha Yitzchak Heichen Haya. Where was Yitzchak? Why does the son not master the mother? After all, Yitzchak's the only child. You know why Yitzchak couldn't make it to the chasana? Not because he ran out of gas, not because this flight was cancelled, because he wasn't in Olam Hazeh, he was in Olam Haba. L'chein, therefore, Rivka, when Rivka saw her, she asked, who's this guy? And the Eved said, it's my master. In Dalamasha. I don't understand. Rivka sees a young man walking. Why is she asking, who is this man? What she's, looking around, to spy out different men that could, be compatible? I mean, why is she asking? Rashi perish rasa oisai hador. Rashi explains she saw His Majesty. Hakusha Yosef Chazaka. The question was even stronger. Okay, the Megalamuka seems to be bothered by the following question, and I'll say it in the way I see it, and that is like this: what happens to Rivka when she sees Yitzchak? Yeah? Fatif, she falls off the camel. She was very startled. Yeah? Why was she very startled?
He was coming from Gan Eden.
What was I don't understand. Did you ever see anything in your whole life that startled you so much that you fell off your chair? I don't know. Did you ever see anything in your life that was so startling that you fell off your chair?
Rashi doesn't say she fell off. Rashi
I know, the
says
pasuk says.
She bowed down, she slid off, she bowed down her head all the way.
Rashi says, Hashmita atzma, she let herself down.
She let herself
But the
down.
simple meaning of the pasuk, of Atipal, is she fell. I mean, she was obviously very startled. What was so startling about Yitzchak? And somehow, the Megalamuka seems to be saying that because Yitzchak was coming from Gan Eden, that was startling. What was so startling? What exactly was so startling about the fact?
Whenever comes back from Gan Eden.
I mean, what, he looked differently?
No one comes out. No one comes after back from Gan Eden.
How do you know Rivka? How do you know?
She knew that he was in Gan Eden. No one comes back from there. Did you ever see anyone from Gan Eden?
I can't answer that question.
She lived in Aram.
No, we don't know that she knew he was coming from Gan Eden.
He had an aura. Can I talk? He had an aura about him that was very.
Really? Where does it say that?
Rashi says it. He
Hador, he was majestic.
was very beautiful.
He was beautiful. Okay, so let's start this way. Let's start with this. Rabbi said probably many of you have heard that Yitzchak was coming from Gan Eden, but this next part may come as a big surprise. Let's start this way. The end of the pasuk says that the Yitzchak was living in where? Be'eretz HaNegev. I mean, who cares? He's living there. It's Hanegev. We know where Yaakov is. We know where they were living. Wait, they moved. While Eliezer, in the one day it took Eliezer to find the shidduch. What, they moved? They didn't move. So why does it have to say he lived Be'eretz Hanegev? It's very interesting. If you look in, there's a sefer called Sefer Shoftim, and in Parak Aleph, Pasuk Tezvav, it says about Asniel ben Kenaz. It says like this. It says that when the wife of Asniel ben Kenaz asked Kalev to give her a field to make money, she said like this: give me a bracha, because you gave me Eretz HaNegev. Rashi explains over there, what does it mean Eretz HaNegev? Eretz HaNegev can mean, you gave me a house that is menugav, it's dried out from anything good, because all we have is Torah. So that could also be what the Torah is saying about Yitzchak. V'hu yoshev b'Eretz HaNegev. This is what's suggested in the Sefer Likutei Ma'amorim, that Yitzchak had just come from Gan Eden. Gan Eden. What was he doing there? He was learning. Yeah? And like the Gemara says, Haroitza lehachkim yadrim. If you want to learn Torah, go to the south. So the Torah is commenting, V'hu yoshev b'Eretz HaNegev. Where was Yitzchak coming from? He was coming from a place that was menugav. It was empty from anything other than Torah. Now listen to this. I'll bring you a couple more sources that Yitzchak was in Gan Eden. The Shach al HaTorah, by the way, the Shach al HaTorah should not be confused with the Shach on Yeridea. The Shach al HaTorah was one of the Gurei HaArizal, one of the students of the Arizal, and he also writes, the Yitzchak was coming, where was he coming from? He was coming from Gan Eden, and he quotes a very interesting medrash, that when Eliezer came back, Yitzchak suspected Eliezer of some monkey business with Rivka, a slave and this young girl in the desert. Who knows what happened? Yitzchak suspected him. So Hashem wanted to sort of remove the suspicion. He said to the Malachi Asheris, what are we going to do to Eliezer? So the Medrash says, the same way Yitzchak went to Gan Eden alive, we'll do the same for Eliezer, so that Eliezer could rise above the suspicion. And in fact, look at number 10. Rabbi say, why did Yitzchak go to Gan Eden after the Akedah? The Shach al HaTorah writes, he fell on the face of his head in order to arouse the crying. But he didn't actually eulogize. He wanted to, but he did not. Now look a couple lines down. Shamati, I heard, Shenimtza b'Zayar. That's found in the Zayar, Shema Shalai Hevi Yitzchak Imai. The reason he didn't bring Yitzchak with him. Lefisha Shachat by Avraham Roiv Shnayim. Because Avraham slaughtered the majority of Yitzchak's 2 simanim. You hear this? Even though Rashi seems to say that he didn't touch him, that's Rashi's opinion. That's the simple meaning of the psukim. The Zayar says he did shecht him.
Don't touch him. Afterwards, he told
Yeah, that's what the Malach said, but God said to do it. So who do you listen to?
So they're saying that he actually did it?
That's what the Zayar says.
And the Malach says, but then the Malach wouldn't have said, Lo Yasa Lo Muma.
It could mean don't.
He already did it, he would have told him to stop. Don't do anymore.
Don't do anymore. Don't do anymore. You already shechted Roiv of his simanim. Stop there.
What is simanim?
What? Roiv Shnayim. The 2 simanim, the Kana and the Vesha. Shnayim.
And why, if Aaron was going to shech the son, he's going to shech the simanim? He's going to chop with the kill.
No, that's how you shech. No. That's how you shech. That's how you do shchita. But when the Malach came and said, Al Tasloi Me'uma, says the Zayar, V'halichu HaMalachim Teikef LeGan Eden, L'Rab Paisai. They brought him to Gan Eden to recuperate. Then Ishta Sham Sholosh Shanim. He said, it's pretty geschmack over here. He stayed there for 3 days. Ubirei Chalav, 3 years. Shkayach. Ubirei Chalav, Baruch Ata Hashem, Chayei HaMesim. When he came back, they made a bracha on him. Chayei HaMesim.
Why do you have to go in Gan Eden to be healed? Hashem could have sent the Malach all of Mazeh to heal him.
That's a kasha namaisa. That's where he heard him. That's where he held him. The Chizkuni also writes, Rabbi Isai, Chizkuni also writes that at the end of the Akedah, it says Abraham returned. The Yitzchak Heichan Halach. He hung out in Gan Eden 3 years. Chizkuni also writes, the end of this week's Parsha, that where was Yitzchak coming from? Mehechan Yatzam Gan Eden, Shahaya Sham Mishaso Akedah Achshav, Shalosh Shanim. Comes the Yismach Moshe. I don't know if we've quoted him in a while. Right? Who's the Yismach Moshe? Yeah? The Yismach Moshe was a contemporary of Chassam Sofer. Yeah, and he says like this. Rashi says he was a contemporary of Chassam Sofer. Contemporary. And Yismach Moshe says like this. Yitzchak, we know when he smelled Yaakov's garments, he smelled Gan Eden. How did Yitzchak know what Gan Eden smelled like? He remembered. He remembered exactly what it smelled like. He spent 3 years there. You don't forget such a smell. Okay. Now listen to this. You ready? Then here's what I told you. Try to keep yourself right side up. Says the Riva, okay, who's the Riva? The Riva is one of the Bali Tosfos. The Riva writes that what exactly was so startling about Yitzchak when Rivka saw her? Says Riva, Lefi Sharasa Yitzchak, Shahaya Ba Mi Gan Eden. She saw Yitzchak coming from Gan Eden. And in Gan Eden, what do people look like? Listen to this. In this world, we stand on our feet. In Gan Eden, they stand on their heads. Okay, that's a chiddush, right? In Gan Eden, says Tosfos, people don't walk on their feet; they walk upside down. And Yitzchak was coming back from Gan Eden the way people come in Gan Eden, standing on his head.
One
second.
Turned around. If he's back on...
No, we can't ask that. He was going the way Mesim walk, Raglehem Lamala, with their feet up in the air. So you say, does anybody else say this? Rashi says this. I thought Rashi says, Ra'isai Hador. He saw His Majesty. No, Hador can mean upside down. Hador can mean like Hadr Nalach, turned over. That's what Rashi means. You hear this? Tosfos says that what Rashi means is, V'Rashi Pirish, She'rasa Oisai Hador. She saw him majestic, V'Taimi Banav. That's what Rashi means, Hador. Hador means turned over.
So why would he have been turned over?
He's coming back from Gan Eden. He hadn't landed yet.
He came out of Gan Eden. Wouldn't he have been right side up?
Not yet. It takes time to acclimate. Yeah.
He's a woman to bring Shmuel back. He came up upside down.
Yeah. So show me that. I don't remember. Okay. So the Riva is saying a very interesting chiddush. that in Gan Eden, instead of right side up, you have upside down. So the question is, why?
Duh.
The question is why? The question is why?
Maybe that's why they
What's
say
the
that
yesh
the son is like the feet of his father. He
He's Feitaya.
has to be right
No,
side
she's
up.
Bala Rivka Sholach B'derech Shena Kavush.
Not on his head.
He was going on an unpaved road, a tricky road, where the Ganavim are. Rabbi said, we know that there's a fundamental difference between human beings and malachim. Human beings are called Haylech, Halchem, people who go. Malachim are called Oimdim. Why is that? Because a malach can't grow, can't go down, remains the same level all of its life. A malach is called an Oimed. A human being is a Haylech. You're supposed to go from one madrega to the next madrega, always growing, always growing. It's very interesting. There's a pasuk in Zechariah Parak Beis. This is from the Haftarah of Bahaloischa, also the Haftarah of Shabbos Chanukah. It says like this. It says, Kayomar Hashem tzavakos in bedrachai telech, if you'll go in my ways. V'im mishmarti tzishman, you keep my guard. V'gamata tadin es beisi, and you judge my house. You preserve the justice. V'gam tishmar es chatzireh. V'nasati l'cha malchim min ha'imdim ha'ila. I will give you malchim between the oimdim. Says the Chassam Sofer in his commentary to the Haftarah on Parshas Bahaloischa. He says like this. We know when a person passes away, he's no longer a haylech. He is an oimed, because he can no longer grow. He can no longer do mitzvahs. But if a Talmid Chacham has Talmidim, or if somebody has sons or daughters who do mitzvahs, so all of those mitzvahs are accredited to the father, and a person could continue to be a haylech even after he goes to the Olam Ha'emes, right? In general, in this world, you're a haylech. In the world to come, you're an oimed. But if a person has talmidim, a person has ma'asim tovim, a person has children that continue to do mitzvos, those mitzvos are credit to the person. Says the Chassam Sofer, this is what Hashem is saying. Ki hatzadik achrei moiseh ena mahalech. A tzaddik, after he dies, he's no longer a haylech. Ki hu chafshi meha mitzvos, because he is exempt from mitzvos. Amnam b'shehem et talmidei harbe. Someone has many students, or many children, or many masim tamim. Kain kol ha-mitzvos asher him. Any mitzvos that they do, havalei ki'ilu hu asam. It's like he's doing them. And this way a person could continue to move up in level, continue to be a haylech. This is what Hashem is saying to the Navi. I will allow you to be a haylech. Even when you're amongst the oimdim, the malachim, okay. So says the Likutei Mamarim. Who's Likutei Mamarim? Likutei Mamarim is the Mamarim of a very popular Maggid Shir in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Rav Pinchas Friedman. He is the head of the Kailalim Bells, Shvilei Pinchas, and he writes in his Mamarim, Tavshin Ayin Beis. Yeah, he says like this. He says, now we understand why Yoiresh Kara de Avuha, Bara Kara de Avuha. And we ask, why of all the parts of the body is the son considered the legs of the father? So he said, beautiful. Because once a person goes to the Olam Ha'emes, he's no longer a Haylech, he's an Oimed. He's stationary. But as the Chassam Sofer said, if a person has students, if a person has children that do mitzvahs, they allow the niftar to continue to be a haylech. A haylech.
Even in the Olam Ha'emes.
Even in the Olam Ha'emes, because all the mitzvahs that they do are credit to the father. So therefore, bara kara da'avuha. The child are the legs of the father. They allow the father to be a haylech.
Very good.
They allow the father to be a haylech, even after the father is an oimed. But if he has talmidim, or if he has ma'asim tovim, or he has children that continue on, so even in the Olam Ha'emes, you could be a haylech.
It's even better in the Gemara, Yoirish Kara Davia, because the bra could be when you're alive. Yoirish is dafka lachar misa.
Yeah, good. Now we understand, he says, in the Olam HaEmes, so to speak, a person has no raglayim. What does that mean he has no raglayim? He can't go, mimadrega madrega. He's stuck on the same rung of the ladder. But a person has hiniach ben kamoisai, the Gemara says, so then he could continue to be a hoylech. Comes along the Sefer Paneach Raza. Who's the Paneach Raza? Fantastic Sefer. Ask Rabbi Shulman. Rabbi Shulman quotes Paneach Raza in one of his Sfarim. Not this piece, but he quotes a different piece. But Paneach Raza says like this. Where is Yitzchak? Why didn't Yitzchak come to Levaya? He said, well, because he doesn't say that that Avraham shechted Yitzchak, but he did make a chabura. The Malachim brought him to Gan Eden to heal him. But the Paneach Raza, he wasn't there 3 years. He was only there 2 years.
So that's the difference between 170.
Whoa! He says, I'll bring you a proof. The proof is like this. We know that Yitzchak was 60 when the kids were born. And Avraham was 100 when Yitzchak was born. That would make Avraham 173 at the day of his death. But we know he died at 175. What happened to the missing years? Says Paneach Raza, he's a Rishon. Look in the second line. V'teda. I'll prove to you Yitzchak spent 2 years in Gan Eden. Sharei Ksiv, because it says
2 years don't count against you.
Says like this. Sharei Ksiv, Vayigdul Hanarim, the kids grew up a pair. Rashi Shahayu Az B'nei Yud Gimel Shanim. He was 13. Uvoy b'parak meis Avraham, and on that day Avraham died. Kidei shelo yira es Esav yotzel tarbas raz, so he shouldn't see Esav going off the derech. V'mei Avraham arei hayu kuf ayin shana. Tzei v'chashav, go out and count kuf Avraham ad leidas Yitzchak. V'shishim liYitzchak ad leidas Yaakov. V'oy yud gimel arata harei ben akol kuf ayin gimel shana. V'mkein batzvilu shnois Avraham beishan. We're missing 2 years. The answer is, even though the Chumash says Yitzchak was 60 when his kids were born, he was really 62. What happened to the 2 years? We only count the time that a person spends in this world. We don't count the time that they spend in Olam Haba. The Torah is not counting them. The Yitzchak ben Samach, uve'emes ben Samach beis hayaz. The truth is, you want to know how old Yitzchak was? Really, he was 62. Really, he was 62. But why does the Torah say 60? He spent 60 years in this world.
Does anybody explain why the Chabura, if there was one, where the Akeda had to be, the recuperation had to be in Olam Haba as opposed to Olam Hazeh?
They didn't have good doctors. They were smart then.
They didn't take his insurance here.
Yeah, what? They were afraid of Obamacare, so they decided to go to Gan Eden. But, says the Shvilei Pinchas, like this. He says, why is it in this world we walk right side up, and in Olam Haba they're upside down? This is very pashut. Because in this world, our focus is on Shemayim.
Maybe it's the reverse, Rabbi. Who says maybe in this world we're upside down and over there it's right side up? That's the way it's supposed to be. Maybe.
Well, we'll see about that. But, listen. Okay, these are all good suggestions, but listen to what he says. Like this. In per this world, kol ma'asecha yu l'shem shamayim. In this world, our focus is on the heavens. Our focus is on serving Hashem l'shem shamayim. Our focus is on the siyata d'shmaya that we have from shamayim. But in Olam Haba, they're stuck. In Olam Haba, once you get there, you're an oimed. You can't. Once you've cashed in, so that's it. Your mitzvos. There's no interest. There's no residual income. What are you going to do? That's why in the Olam HaEmes, their focus is on this world. What have we left down in this world that we could still continue to gain from? And the answer is, if a person has children, talmidim, ma'asim tovim, or had hashpa on other people, that is something that is residual income. And that is why perhaps in the Olam HaEmes, whatever that means, we don't know exactly what it means, that their head is on the bottom and the feet are on top, we don't exactly understand that. But in some vein, their focus is on Olam Hazeh, because their only way that they could grow and remain a haylech in Olam Haba is with the focusing on what they've left in this world. And it says, Likutei Mamorim, perhaps this is what the Gemara means in Psachim. The Gemara tells us in Psachim, Rabbi Yosef was sick, and he went up to Olam Haba. And when he came back down, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, his father asked him, what did you see up there? What did he say?
Olam
hafach ra'isi. I saw an upside down world. El yoinim lamata, v'tachtainim lamala. So even though there are many perushim in this Gemara, but based on what we just learned, very simple. What does it mean? Yeah, it's an upside down world. Yeah, everything's upside down. Literally. People are standing on their heads. So his father said, no. That's the way it is. And that's what you saw in Olam Bara. Because in this world, our focus is on Shamayim. Our focus is on acting L'Shem Shamayim. But in Olam Haba, it's very frightening that once a person gets to Olam Haba, he can't do mitzvahs anymore. The Vilna Gaon on his deathbed, right? He was crying about the mitzvah of tzitzis. He said, in this world, for a few bucks, you could buy a pair of tzitzis. In Olam Haba, there's nothing more you could do. You can't even buy a mitzvah. But that is perhaps why.
From all your mitzvahs paid in Olam Haba.
Yeah, you get schar.
Well, what schar are you getting?
But you're capped out. There's nothing more you can do.
But if you have a big bank account and you planned appropriately during Olam Hazeh for retirement.
But look, even the Amoraim said,
get the benefits.
The Archa Rachikta Uzvida Kalila. They said it's a long trip. It's a long existence. Eternity is a long time. Yeah,
You need an annuity. You need a good base for your annuity.
But the focus of the people in the Olam HaEmes is on this world. What have they left in the Olam, in this world, that they could continue to accrue residual income in the world to come? A wonderful Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.